Your Steve Jones Show podcast is loading now. The Steve Jones Show podcast is sponsored by Sunbury Motors, North 4th Street in Sunbury, and Sunbury Motors Kia, routes 11 and 15 in Hummel's Wharf.
Neal Coolong and I rehearsed this segment last week because we knew the end was coming. Sir, welcome.
It's great to be here, and yes, I think that was my greatest prediction of the year. Kansas City was going to beat Pittsburgh in the wild card round of the playoffs.
I know I fought you hard on that prediction. I apologize for I was vehement and
you put up a good argument. I thought about it. I thought long and hard. It was tough.
I said they're going to get roasted. I said the Eagles are going to get roasted. The Patriots are going to get roasted. All right. So let's put just very quickly on the game. You and I both know that so much of this, we can talk scheme all we want, but scheme's only good if you got the right matchups. This was a bad matchup from the get-go. Why?
Depth, and just really the talent in one for one. I mean, if we were to pick it apart, and you can't really do this, but just for perspective's sake, look at Travis Kelce and look at Pat Freiermuth. Look at Deontay Johnson. Look at Tyreek Hill. Look at Najee Harris and look at any one of their speed demon running backs, multi-position guys, your Jerick McKinnon types of guys. Kansas City just has explosive playmakers, and Pittsburgh does not. And on top of that, the biggest one of all would be the quarterback position. Kansas City has a quarterback that's capable of consistently throwing the ball 15-plus yards down the field. That gives you a dimension within your offense to do things. And it's exactly why, it was great. It was a lot of fun. The first couple drives, Steelers defense was playing really well. They were. There's no doubt about that. Yeah. They did a lot of good things. But you're not going to stop that team for 4 quarters. There's just no way you can do that in today's NFL. They're going to put points on the board. And then along with that, you had a couple breakdowns within the Steelers defense. And just like that, it was 21-7. And that's the result of Kansas City doing what it normally does, whereas getting up 7-0 was Pittsburgh moving the ball literally 1 foot at a time and then making plays on defense to do it. It's not sustainable. They're just top to bottom. Pittsburgh's offense they were terrible, especially over the second half of the year. It was worse than it was last season. And a large part of that is they do not have playmakers, explosive playmakers. They've got a lot of guys that can plod. There are a lot of guys that will make plays, come up with your combat catches or do things on 3rd and 5. They don't have guys that can flip the field. They don't have guys who are a threat to make a big play every time they touch the ball, regardless of where they are on the field. So exactly to your point, scheme is irrelevant if you don't have playmakers, and they completely lack playmakers on offense. We've seen it all year. We've seen it for the better part of 2 years. They're just not good enough.
And if you do have a playmaker, you have to catch the ball more than 50% of the time, and that's a big problem. I felt like every time I watch Deontay Johnson, I feel like I'm watching the movie The Replacements. It's like where he can fly down the field.
Such a frustrating game from him, too, because the first one ran a beautiful slant, ran an all-pro level slant. The cornerback has to know Johnson when he's closer to the tight end, when he lines up. He's got to be thinking slant is a pretty good option here. Yeah. He's lining up on him evenly. He wasn't giving it to him. The ball was snapped. Johnson was off, and he was gone immediately. He beat him immediately off the ball, and it clunked square off his hands. Yeah. It's like, oh God, that was a first down, and that's not the end all be all of the game. But 2 of those would have been first downs that he dropped. I had been 3 drops. 2 of them would have been first downs. Yeah. That extends drives. That gets you, theoretically, 3 more plays. That runs some more time. That gets your offense more plays to run to see what the defense is doing. When you punt every down for a half, you're just simply not going to get into any type of rhythm, and you don't have anything to adjust to. I mean, you weren't good at anything. So it was extremely frustrating to see that after the year that he had, because he came on. He was really good over the last 8-9 games of the season. You saw really how good that he can be, and he was getting open. He gives himself the opportunity to make plays, but it just didn't work for whatever reason. Who knows? I mean, it's not the velocity of the ball. I know that. So it's frustrating to see. But, if nothing else, Johnson showed up every game. He played the game hard. He's gotten a lot better as a player. I think he still has room to grow. He's just going to have to get that figured out, if that's something that he can even do.
All right, so now let's get to the coordinator situation. Matt Canada and Keith Butler. What are your thoughts?
Canada, I can't say the full statement on the air, but you really can't make chicken salad out of chicken stuff. He didn't have weapons available to do much. The reason this offense this season looks so much like it did last season is because you had a lot of the same guys. It's not the guy calling the plays. They have to draw up stuff that can work. You don't go in to make plays to try to trick people all the time. It's not a Disney movie, okay? They can adjust to what you're doing. They can figure out what you're doing. You need to be able to do simple things well, and they couldn't do that. They're just not very good, top to bottom. I'm not concerned so much with the direction of the offense in year one of Matt Canada. What I would look at more now is he's had a year under his belt as far as running everything. What are they going to do? What is it going to look like? What's their plan going to be? They've got a solid running back. They're going to have a new quarterback. I'm going to guess it's Mason Rudolph, but maybe it's somebody completely different. They're going to need to draft playmakers. So you're putting the Steelers' reputation to find good receivers at some point in the draft on the line with this. It's similar to last year in the sense that they have more needs than they have picks. So how are they going to make that a priority? I think to some degree, if you want to challenge Canada, it's going to have to be you need to get him mid to late round guys, and he's going to have to make something out of them. So that's not just on him. That's on the position coaches as well, but they all contribute to that. I don't think you get rid of him after a year. I'm not sure there was a point in hiring him simply because last year at this time when we had this conversation, I said the same thing. They're not going to be a good offensive team next year because they don't have the guys. It takes a while to build and develop that. They've got to be able to make that move this year. They're going to have to add something explosive on offense, and I think Canada is going to have to be, kind of an eye for that as far as what they have internally, as far as what's in the draft, as far as what's available. He's going to have to weigh in on that, and they're going to let him, sleep in the bed that he made. As far as Butler goes, I've heard the rumors, retirement's a possibility. I think either way, he's probably at the end of his rope. They're going to need to continue to change what they're doing. Their offense now does have to defense does have to kind of go through TJ Watt fully. They've made the financial commitment to it. They're going to have a lot more younger guys coming in. I think they did a lot of different stuff in their secondary this year. And with that, you probably still need to refresh talent there. You're going to have to figure out James Pierre because you're letting Joe Hayden walk for him, and you bench James Pierre halfway through the year and let Akilla Witherspoon, who didn't play at all, step up and look pretty good. He's probably not coming back. He's going to sign somewhere that's above Pittsburgh's desired pay range, and you're going to have to make it work with James Pierre. You're probably going to have to get more out of Cam Sutton, and with that, if Cam Sutton's on the field, hope they don't play Kansas City ever again. He got destroyed in that game. That was really bad.
Yep.
And you're going to have to draft one, and then you'll sign the standard Steelers veteran slot guy like they always do. To me, that's a defensive overhaul in a lot of ways. They have a lot of good pieces in place, but the defensive line needs to be overhauled. Their inside linebackers, you got some pretty good questions there of what you're going to do. They might be at zero at that position. Who knows? I think it's time for a change in direction there. It's not so much that Butler did a terrible job or Tomlin had to bail him out or anything like that. It's time to find somebody else. I think Terrell Austin is the guy they've had in mind to do exactly that. And I'm not against that. I think he did a great job with the secondary. And I think the secondary really kind of has to become more of a strength of the team now. And I mean, across the entire board, they're going to have to play 8 defensive back deep. That's kind of the way the NFL works nowadays. Yeah. And I think Austin has better insight to that than Butler has shown from the past before Austin came in. So I think Austin's probably their guy. And with that too, maybe they're going to take a look at the linebacker position and look how to recoach that. Jerry Olszewski's done a great job. He's been there for a long time. Mm-hmm. They've got a real problem there though, and that's something that's going to have to be addressed. in every phase of the offseason. That might include coaching as well.
All right. The Steelers, along Green Bay and the Patriots, bucked the trend the last 20-plus years, where in the NFL, the way it's designed between schedule, drafting, and so forth, you're supposed to have a dip, and then you're supposed to recover. The Steelers, Packers, and Patriots, in one form or another, stayed in the neighborhood of the playoffs and relative through the entire two-decade period. Okay, Favre, Rodgers, Brady, Roethlisberger, all were centerpieces for making that happen. I know Ben at the end, the last 2 years, I felt like he did more aiming of the ball than he did throwing of the football. But how would you put Ben Roethlisberger's career into perspective?
I think Ben, overall, I hate to say this because I sound like a TV studio analyst that kind of just does the surface evaluation things, but the best way to describe Ben is tough. He gutted games out, and more than the level of competitive leadership that he showed, I think is something the Steelers are going to see next year as a step down. They don't have guys like that. Ben did not let his team give up, and granted, there are games like his last one that were both completely out of reach and, him playing his best didn't do anything. But there are games in which he brought the team back. He was able to make them more competitive because he wasn't going to let them just lose. He wasn't going to quit. There's a resounding effect of that on a team. When you know that you have a guy like that, you want to rise to that level. Without that, I think the Steelers are going to feel it. And to me, that's what a legacy really is. What is the team after the guy? What happens to them after? I'm not sure what they're going to look like. But to your point, he was aiming the ball because he really couldn't throw it. I don't care what anybody says. He did not have many instances in which he was able to rear back and really gun it the way that we've seen it. And the guy, he essentially fought wars on the field. He was bludgeoned over a very long career. He paid the toll for his Hall of Fame induction with his body, and we're going to see that as the years go on, I think.
Yeah.
He didn't have it. He got away with it, though, and I've said this for years. Ben was always one of the more underrated, intelligent quarterbacks. He was a very cerebral player. He knew what to do with the ball, and I think this year, probably more than anything, we saw that. He only had, 8 interceptions or something like that. They still threw a lot. I mean, a lot of it was because they were way behind, but he made good decisions with the ball this year because he knew he had to protect it. Mm-hmm. In the past, he might not have felt that as much because they had such an explosive offense. They were going to be able to get it back. But if he could beat a team by halftime, that's what he wanted to do. He couldn't play like that. He had to adjust his game. And while he wasn't difference-making good, he wasn't bad either. If Ben wanted to play and he really felt that, there's a team that would pay him $20 million to play for him next year. I guarantee you that. Look around the league. I mean, the teams that weren't in the playoffs, you saw some horrible quarterbacks. And I know that it's unfair that Patrick Mahomes kind of has to set the standard of quality quarterback play, but that's what it is now. Ben would be able to get on a field and not screw anything up and put his team in position to win better than a lot of the quarterbacks that are in the league today. But he doesn't have anything left physically. He wasn't going to be a difference maker. I guess all of that really just speaks to the fact that in many ways, I would just say he was very underrated in terms of the full scope of his game. He won a lot. He's not a top echelon guy, but I think he made his mark on this generation of the NFL and this era of the NFL in a very positive and very memorable way. And to me, that's about as strong an endorsement I think you can give anybody who right now is not Tom Brady, Peyton Manning, Aaron Rodgers, guys that, Ben's peers, even a Drew Brees. These are some absolutely phenomenal quarterbacks. And Ben wasn't far below any of them. I think Ben made his team better on a game-to-game basis, and the dude was tough as nails. You loved watching him, and they're going to miss him. Even if he wasn't physically at his best, he made that team better doing everything that he could in every season. And it wasn't always going to be enough to win a Super Bowl, but he put everything out there, and I'm curious to see how they're going to replace that.
Not only that, I think it's just a guess on my part. but you got a feeling that he was in charge more at the line of scrimmage with what they were going to run in the fourth quarter of games, and his passer rating was exponentially higher in the fourth quarter this year. It's just a guess on my part, but my guess is because he really was in charge at that point.
That would not surprise me at all. And I'm gonna go off the rails here a little bit. This is a really silly example, I know, but I saw Van Halen in concert in 2012, and this is like 62-year-old David Lee Roth singing. For the first hour and a half of the show, David Lee Roth wasn't even singing every third note. You know, it's like he was pacing himself the entire time, and it was really boring. It wasn't good. I was kind of frustrated. I knew what I was getting into, but it wasn't a very good show. The last 9 or 10 songs, it was obvious that he cranked it up. Like he had been saving himself for this the entire time. And that really kind of became the show. I think that in a way is to some degree is kind of what Ben was doing. I think he figured out what a defense was doing. And by the end of it, he had a good sense of what they were going to do, and that's when he turned it on. His best throws were always in the second half and usually in the fourth quarter. Mm-hmm. He didn't start off the game well, I don't think, in any game they played this year and probably most of last year. He had to use what he had sparingly. We saw at times he had some physical ability left. I remember a throw against Indianapolis last year that he hadn't attempted all game or all season, and he hit it, square on the money. He had moments of that this season, but not enough to make you think he could do it over that time. It's almost like he was trying to save himself. And that speaks to he probably just doesn't have anything left physically. And that's really all that he had to give.
Well, you know what? He felt like he gave it all for 18 years. Now, time to turn the page. It's going to be one of those situations where sometimes you don't know what you have until you don't. There are going to be some Pittsburgh fans who are going to sit back and go, "Oh man, I missed that dude." So
we'll hear it in week one.
Yes.
Well, he's not Ben.
Yeah.
We're gonna hear that for a generation.
Yeah. My friend, thanks so much. A lot to talk about in this offseason, so look forward to talking next week.
Definitely. Looking forward to doing that. Thanks for having me.